I may need,
I got it.
thank you.
I got it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Not the second one.
Sorry.
All right. Thank you all for being here at Scituate Planning Board, Thursday, May 26th, 2022. The general public is welcome to attend via Zoom. Public comment will be available either by computer or by phone. So that said, I'll entertain a motion to approve the agenda. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous. Moving on, 6:30. Continued public hearing, site plan administrative review and special permit for a multifamily building in the Village Center and Neighborhood District, Greenbush, Gateway District, Greenbush Gateway Business Subdistrict, and stormwater permit, 7 New Driftway. Owner Joan Osceola, trustee of Shepherd Way Realty Trust, applicant Driftway LLC. Come forward, gentlemen.
Can I just say one thing first before we start?
Yes, ma'am.
We're not gonna go into a whole site plan review tonight because we do not have the peer review because it wasn't submitted in the time, in the manner it was requested. We're aimed to talk about certain items to help move the project along.
Yes. Yes, okay. Just identify yourself for the record and we will go forward.
Wonderful. For the record, my name is Walter Sullivan. I'm the attorney for the applicant. With me is the applicant Frank Pollock of Driftway LLC. To my left is Eric Schumacher from McKinsey Engineering, the project engineer, and also behind us is the project architect, Phil Tebow. If it meets with the pleasure of the board, I would propose to have Mr. Schumacher just go through the site plan on what's changed since we were last here.
No, we have other things that we need to deal with.
As far as the location of the building, you're gonna be talking about the building.
Okay.
So as far as the building goes, that is, I don't have an objection to that.
All right, fine.
Eric, if you keep it brief.
Eric Shoemaker, McKenzie Engineering Group. Since we last met, we downsized the proposed building from a 4-story, 7,338 square foot building to a 3-story, 7,086.
Excuse me, can you turn that so they can see what I'm hearing, please? Thank you. Thank you, Karen. Thank you.
So we downsized, removed a story and basically made the footprint about 4 feet smaller. So by doing this, we are allowed to move the front facade of the building within that max front yard setback, and we provided some greater separation to the first Herring Brook. The retaining walls in the rear have been removed. We wanted to get that impervious surface away from the brook. And with those changes, we had to modify the accessible route to the building, as well as the handicap parking spaces. And we also revised the parking lot with 1 less story. We had less parking spaces. So we were able to push that about 20 feet away from the brook. We removed that landscape island in the middle, made it more efficient. And with those changes, we just did some modifications to the drainage system as well. Just to touch on that, we removed the subsurface.
We're not talking about drainage tonight.
Just a rain garden. And so that pretty much covers just the building and parking modifications. Also provided to the board was a landscape plan as well. So that's just a quick rundown. I can go into detail or answer questions.
So I gave you a comment from the Conservation Commission's consultant engineer who agrees that the location of the building is no more further impinging into the area than was previously, so they seem to be okay with the building. They have not been to conservation. My understanding is that meeting is in early June, and so hopefully the Conservation Commission will formally vote that that the building location is fine for them. And so the applicants got that memo as well.
All right. And then we have,
I don't know if you want to go into talking about the redesign of the building now, or if you want to hit some of the other things that we need to talk about first.
let's hit some of the other things we need to talk about.
All right, so the first thing we really need to talk about is the affordable units.
Okay.
Right now, in changing the building, it's a 19-unit building now, okay? And I will let Mr. Pollock continue with his, what he wants to say for affordable units.
Well, I believe the last conversation that we had, the board was asking for four units, am I correct?
At the if it's a 19-unit building, it's 4 affordable units.
Right.
However, I'm gonna say that all of your other projects, you have the affordable units in your total. So if you have the affordable units on site, then it's 4 affordable units as part of the 19. If you allow them off-site, then you need to increase the number. So if it becomes 2 units off-site, the total units is 21 units for the project. All your other projects, 50 Country Way was 30 with 4 affordable, Drew was 78 with 12 affordable. It's all in the total number.
So I believe that we were waiting for a decision on part of the board as to whether or not you would entertain us building off-site for at least part of it. And I don't believe we reached whatever the decision was on the part of the board. We didn't get that far.
Well, we're gonna get that done tonight.
The other thing that's come up is that a gentleman was referred to me by Karen, who represents a company that does group homes. And I spoke to him at length. I did not choose to bring him or invite him this evening because we don't have a decision about whether or not we can even do it off-site. However, his proposal to the community would be a single building that's about 26 to 2,700 square feet. It sits on one lot, and it yields 5 bedrooms. The community would get benefit of a complete unit for each bedroom, i.e. five affordable units for one building. I did tell the gentleman that we were at the meeting coming before you tonight to see if we get a decision about whether or not the board would allow us to be off-site. And if that were the case, whether or not the board would then entertain possibly bringing him in front of the board and explaining a potential joint venture where we could produce this.
So this would be, I was approached by a realtor who, represented, my understanding is Cardinal Cushing, and they want to do a group home in Scituate. My understanding is group homes are supposed to be in residential areas. I gave him a couple of sites, and he seemed to express interest in the 165, 167 Stockbridge Road site. I did tell him, this may already been spoken for, and they have, the gentleman has gotten in touch with Mr. Pollock on his own. There is a desire to have, a group home.
But this is my sense on this, if I may. If you are able to do the 5 units, the 5 bedrooms, off-site, I could go with that. But if it doesn't go forward, then the 4 units have to be on-site. That's just how I feel,
Very fair.
okay?
Thank you.
Well, I guess I'd like to hear a little bit more about what this proposal off-site is. It sounds like it's more like a boarding house. It is
No, it's a group home.
individual affordable units.
It's a group home, and every bedroom in a group home counts as a unit. That's how they're listed on the subsidized housing inventory.
So it's 5 bedrooms, 1 kitchen.
I believe so, yes.
Managed by the organization.
They have another group home already in town. We're not allowed to know where these are. It's confidential.
And so what is why can't you build them on site as opposed to off site? What's the driving factor there?
It would be economic. See, the building is cut down so drastically now that we'd be looking at 25% of the building would be affordable. It wouldn't work.
It wouldn't work because,
Economically. Even as it is, it's marginal because we're still offering all of the amenities that we originally proposed, which was the underground parking, gated community, all of that. So we felt necessary to stick to everything as original plan, even though the total units were reduced.
and what kind of assurance is there that these would get built?
That the affordable would get built?
The off-site affordable, is that what you're talking about?
Well, either of course, but the one you control, we can control, right? The one that's off-site, if somebody else is doing it.
No, it would be joint venture. We would still be.
I think the board could condition it in the decision that a requirement would be that it has to be counted and get credit for it, or otherwise the 4 units have to go on site.
Prior to occupancy.
That's what I mean,
We can condition
it has
that.
to be built.
Prior to
Simultaneously
occupancy,
with the
yeah,
building.
we can condition that.
Karen, can I ask a quick question? So if it was like an off-site group home, those 5 units, do that count towards the affordable?
Yes,
housing
yes,
stuff?
they-
Okay.
yes. Patty?
I have to say that I like the community of doing this. I think that I do have a problem, and I'm gonna tell you right up front with the inclusionary housing issue, that I think it's unfortunate, but I understand. I've thought over a week about this long and hard. I do think that from my perspective, this could be a win-win for us. I think it gives us 5 affordable units, which we really shouldn't be talking about, instead of housing 5 people who probably could not be here. I also think that it is within walking distance of Greenbush, which we are trying to give people jobs. I have worked with these young people, they come to work all the time, they have a great work ethic. I think that it is unfortunate in the day and age that we live in, that we cannot include Woody B housing because of housing costs. If I could be assured that there is always a house monitor in that house, I mean, I know they're closely controlled, that we know that it wouldn't be derelict, and it would be kept up to the very best of standards, as well as if we were building in 7 New Driftway. I personally do believe that I could support that.
Ben?
Karen, could you clarify, you said normally the affordables count towards the total number. In this case, you said off-site, it would end up being 21 units.
Well,
Correct.
All right, if it was what they were talking about previously with the duplex, it would have been 21 units.
Right,
And that would have been off-site, but now if it's a group home, it would be 24. And so they need 5 affordable units with 24. And so that's what they would be giving you.
okay, so it doesn't end up really that,
No.
we're getting an extra 1 unit, it's that they would have to do 5 anyways, if that's how we count it.
Right.
Okay.
It works out that it works with the numbers.
Okay. I do like the idea of the joint venture and the group home. Originally, we were talking about, was it doing 2 units of off-site housing, if I remember? In order to further promote affordable housing, because I'm very strongly believe that the affordable housing should be on-site. I think that's for every project. I think that's required for every project, so I'm not really a fan of the off-site. However, in this case, the idea of bringing a group home and the fact that it's with another entity that does this, I guess I mean, I'm probably more conservative than the rest of the board, but I could see counting this as the 2 units, even though now it's 5 per bedroom. Basically going back to where we were before, where yes, you can do 2 units outside, you'll count it as 2, but then you'll still have to do 3 on site, if that makes any sense. Are you following my logic?
Not really,
So, given that's a joint venture,
right,
this particular partner of that venture also has another project with which they're obligated to do 5 units.
But if I understand this correctly, rather than having 4 units on site, there would be 5 units off-site.
Right, and I'm saying give these guys credit for 2, and then they still have to come up with 2 on site, which is what they had before.
With 19, you need 4 affordable
Right.
units.
And we're getting 5.
All on site.
All upside,
All
all
outside,
outside, I understand, and I
Do you
totally,
understand
I,
my circle line?
and I totally agree with what you're saying, that I totally get that.
Mhm.
And I truly believe that inclusionary housing should be on site. But I think that this is an opportunity that we need to look at in a broader human sense, actually, to think that, it took me a long time to get to where I am, so to understand that I think that it's a good idea. And I don't want this to be set as precedent, and that's our big thing, that we don't wanna always say that, first of all, we don't normally allow offsite, so this is a whole new can of worms, but I agree with you, I also agree strongly with Ben, so we'll have to see how the conversation evolves.
Yeah, I think the other thing that sort of strikes me here is that a 5-unit group home is a completely different sort of animal
Yes.
than 4 self-contained affordable units that 4 different families or individuals could potentially live in.
Right.
Whereas this sounds like this is more like a boarding house. And it's gonna be controlled by Cardinal Cushing, I guess. And the individuals, I don't know who the individuals are who are coming in and be staying at these. And how long they would be there, or whether it's a transient thing that changes out sort of year to year.
I don't know anything about it, I just know that
I'm just trying to
we have
reconcile
another-
these 2 different concepts here.
we have another group home that they manage in town, and it's been very successful.
Right,
And I
and there's
just-
nothing that precludes them from building another,
Correct,
with or without this development.
that's correct.
That's right.
But, and I can tell you, Steve, from personal experience, they are not transient. They've been there for
The duration.
the duration,
What's the duration?
Life.
usually
Right.
like,
It's like,
once we're settled, if we're comfortable, if we tend not to try to disrupt each other people's lives too much, they are usually there, and I have a personal experience with this, with 2 family members, they're there for life.
they age out.
I do believe that they recognize local participation, so the needs are local, that they're fulfilled.
We could certainly have the gentleman that we're talking with, make a presentation on what they do at the next meeting, but it's been a while since we've been here. I think everybody needs, I would hope, to be mindful of the difficulties with this site. There is no more complicated piece of property in the town of Scituate that I'm aware of. So I think I would ask the board to keep that in mind when we talk about the off-site. We're not trying to get around anything, we're trying to make it work. And so that's why we understand our obligation, and we thought that this was a nice solution.
I personally would like to take you up on that, hear more about, because I don't know anything about this group of things, so you obviously know more.
Yeah, I think one of them, unfortunately.
But we will do that.
Is the land that this would be going on, is it owned?
It's owned by the Affordable Housing Trust.
What is their position on this, or have we not discussed it with them yet?
The Affordable Housing Trust is waiting to see what the planning board says tonight before they start delving into this anymore, because if the planning board takes a straw vote and says no, then it's a moot issue. But they're waiting to know.
Which way are they leaning now? What's their inclination?
We haven't asked them that.
Okay.
I
Do
heard
they think this is a good use?
I heard they did discuss it at their last meeting, and it seemed a positive thing,
Okay.
but that's all I've heard.
If I may, I was told by Peter, that you referred me to, that he had a discussion with Mr. Irish, And there was a favorable reaction, however, Mr. Irish told them that property, that location was spoken for by us, if the board decided to let us build off-site. So,
That's the hangup. I mean, they've made a gentleman's
They're
agreement, you
chicken
know.
and the egg point, yeah.
Right, so, I mean, that's why they're waiting to hear what the planning board says tonight.
Because I thought they had wanted 2 units there.
Right, but now,
But
now
this isn't attractive.
this is
that's
a thing that has cropped up in the past 2
This would be
months,
something they would be interested in.
I believe so.
I think that the group home sounds like a good idea, and especially I understand the economics argument for this site. So putting affordable housing units off-site makes sense, and then having a group home would serve an additional social benefit for the community that on top of lower income people that, people who might be in recovery or whatever the group home is used for, that's a well-managed group home would be especially, I'm assuming there's a lot of need for it. So if people are asking.
There is
Sounds
need
good.
for it.
Absolutely.
But it's also a piece of land owned by the Affordable Housing Trust, so if something's gonna go there, it's gonna be affordable housing, right?
Yeah.
And how long has it been there?
Long time.
10 years.
It goes back
Do
to
we know what
Salamando.
parcel is?
Excuse me?
Salamando put 2 affordable units there back, when was that built?
We put
15
one
years.
affordable
One,
unit there.
Okay, one's good.
This has been permitted with a common driveway, and the one affordable unit from Salamando in this site since 2011. The planning board gave a common driveway permit in 2011 to have a common driveway for a duplex. It's got double the lot area, so it can house a duplex. But, with a group home, I think that would, that would only be a
Was it
single
something the
family.
Affordable Housing Trust requested? Who
Back
asked?
in 2011, yeah.
Yeah, okay, that's what I was asking.
They have a single home and they have an area for
A duplex.
duplex.
I believe at one point that land was owned by the town of Scituate, which was given over to the housing trust for that very reason.
I think you're correct.
And I think too, what ended up happening, to put in the infrastructure became so expensive. That's why only one house went in. It was very costly to do that. At any rate, what is the consensus of the board? Do we want to pursue further a group home on this property? Or are we going to tell them they have to put it on site? What is your pleasure? I need to know.
Well, as I said, I would like to hear more about the roles of the group on that. It's first I heard of it, so.
Yeah, I'd say 19 market price in the building and then off-site, and let's show the group home proposal.
I'm okay with that.
I'm sticking with my hybrid model,
You sticking with your 2 on, 2 off, is that your hybrid model?
because I also don't know how aggressively this other entity is pursuing the development of group.
They're
That's
pursuing
affordable.
it.
They are pursuing it.
They are.
They're
Well, I
pursuing
think
it.
So
that's why I'm suggesting they come in.
I think they should come into the next meeting, but
Yes.
they are pursuing it.
Yes.
Right, to my point though is that the Affordable Housing Trust has town minutes for affordable housing. This is a planning board requirement for this type of development. What I'm saying is we could potentially get 9 units of affordable housing. I don't know this other entity, how they want to do group home with Affordable Housing Trust is thinking. I'm more concerned with aggressively pursuing affordable housing in this community, and that's where I'm gonna stand on this issue. So if we can do the hybrid, I'm happy to give them the benefit of getting 2 units out of it. If they're gonna do a partnership, which is what this has been described, a partnership, so not a full share, and then the rest can be on site, but I guess I need to know more information if I'm gonna go 100% in the other direction with the rest of the board.
All right, so,
So a strong vote seems to be 3-2 at the moment. And it seems like at the next meeting, you want them to bring in the people.
Mhm.
And would it benefit to have the Affordable Housing Trust
Yes.
come in too?
Absolutely,
Yeah, let's hear it out, right? It's just-
get it all out on the table. All right, the next issue we have,
The next issue is the building, the new building.
Can I just say something just to clarify this? So either a group home or two houses are going on that property,
a duplex.
a duplex. So what we're saying deep down inside is that that's your property to do what we decide to do. Is that correct or not?
It's not their property.
Well, I mean, for them to develop it.
No, I mean, if, Cardinal Cushing can come in and build a 5-unit
Yeah.
group home if they wanted to, they don't necessarily need anybody else,
Need
right?
affordable trust.
It's, from what I understand, it's because of the designation of the property. These people that do this group home and manage the group homes need the locations, and they just can't come in and take a location without support and cooperation.
I
Which we
get that,
do with
I get that, it's owned by the Affordable Housing Trust, presumably a group home is something they would support. And so there's nothing that says, that entity couldn't come in and build a 5-unit group home on it with or without this development.
I think what you would hear though is that we've been meeting with the Affordable Housing Trust and we've been talking about building duplexes. So that was something that they were supportive of. I think this is something that they would also support.
Okay. Definitely willing to hear it out.
I think the Affordable Housing Unit or Trust, they have to find someone to come in to build that.
Right.
They don't have the money to do
They
that.
don't.
No, I get that.
So maybe,
No, no.
I don't know if Cardinal Cushing has the money to do that either, but
And if they did,
the
they
housing trust
probably
does
already
not
would
have
have.
the money to do
Yeah.
that.
They needed a piece of property to
They
do
need
it
a
with.
property to do
That was,
Yeah.
that was the deal. Sir, would you identify yourself, please?
Bill Dillon, I represent the ownership of the Southern New Driftway, but someone else just made the comment that I wanted to see made. In reference to like Cardinal Cushing, they don't have unlimited resources. They need somebody like Mr. Pollock to do a joint venture with to expedite this kind of project. I can tell, I come from Belmont, we have a number of group homes. You don't even know they're group homes.
You're not supposed to know the group homes.
Right, and I'm just saying sometimes it's fear of the unknown. Mr. Pritchard wants to learn more about it. It should be a quick study.
Thank
Well,
you.
I think it's fair to ask whoever's proposing this to come here and talk about it.
No, I don't think that's unfair. I'm just saying it's gonna be easy for you to get comfortable with how they operate these.
See how it
And
works.
what is the proposal that you're proposing in the joint venture? Are you paying for half of it or?
We would build it together.
Yep.
And they would manage it,
Okay,
and essentially own it. I have no interest in.
so when you say you build it together, you're paying 50% of it?
I don't know all the details. The only reason the gentleman's not here tonight
Uh-huh.
is because I didn't know whether or not the board's purview was to let us build offsite. Had I known that, I would have brought the gentleman with me.
We can certainly share those details when we're
Absolutely.
next. We'll hammer that out.
Then most likely it's a, charity or nonprofit that runs or manages the group home, but they don't have the capital to actually build a building, to put it in place, but once the building is built, they can then move in their management team.
Yeah, I'm just asking
I do
for the
know,
next level of detail.
right, I do know of one group home, there are 4 individuals in this group home. It's run by the May Company. And each family bought into the group home. So split 4 ways. That was the only way that they could do it. So there are different parameters and funding aspects, et cetera, So, all right. We will have.
Just one thing on all of this.
Mhm.
This board has been burned before by people promising to build things that don't get built.
So you condition it prior to
I'm-
certificate of occupancy?
Karen, I hear you. But I'm just telling you, that has to be part of the equation.
I agree.
Because we're not gonna let it happen again.
I think it should go on simultaneously with the construction of the roof.
All right, so the architecture of the building.
Yes.
The architecture has all been reconfigured. They have been back to the design review committee multiple times. I sent you the memo from the design review committee. The design review committee now recommends that the planning board approve this design. But I wanted to just give them, we need to, does the planning board support the design review committee's recommendation?
Do we have, looks like we've got visuals.
We do.
Always open to a visual.
So the architecture was redefined to include gabled roofs or sloped roofs rather than the flat roof that was designed previously. We had removed the floor, so we have 5 units on the second and third floor, 4 units on the first floor, and then there are actually 2 units up on the built within the roof. And so that the mean slope of the roof, so the middle of the roof complies with the height requirements of the zoning bylaw, so it's at 40 feet from average grade plane. The units were, as I said previously, they were redesigned we did have to kind of the footprint itself, the 100 feet wide and 72 feet deep, is slightly smaller. The depth of the building was reduced to help reposition it on the site. So we had to reconfigure all the units. So as I said, there are 5 units on the first floor, with an entrance lobby. Mail room, utilities, and then second and third floor, there are 6 units. And then, as I said, built within the roof, there are 2 units, there's parking and. So as far as the architecture goes, clapboard siding, with a mix of shake sidings, double hung windows. We discussed with the design review committee to have traditional wood detailing. Some of the newer AZEC trims allow for things to kind of get tucked behind, but we said we would detail it as if it was wood to maintain that sort of vernacular for the neighborhood. That's brief. So.
Looks good.
It looks like you have relief on the front of the facade too, so it's not all flat.
That's correct. We wanted to maintain some visual interest, so it didn't have that flat appearance. So we did a small bay. They fall within the 18-inch projection that's within the zoning bylaw, so we don't fall outside of what the zoning bylaw would be.
And that's the handicap ramp coming up.
That is correct.
Will that require
well,
railings?
No, it won't, because the slope is at a 120. It's considered a slope sidewalk. We will. It's not. The railings aren't shown at this particular location where it kind of turns back, but there would be railings there. One thing that we are doing at the request. I apologize, it's not shown here, but at the request of the design review committee, we extended the stairs more forward. And the stairs will actually come here to get up to this critical level. And then that slope sidewalk will be wider, so anybody who has mobility issues and those who don't have essentially the same entrance into the building because it's set further back.
Comments?
I think that looks a lot better. I like the deep eaves and the fact they've really got the relief on the front and all that. And it's gonna be really visible coming into Scituate.
But it somewhat mirrors, not quite, it's somewhat the Jacob Hatch House. And that was the intent.
Well,
You don't think it's
what
better
else
than
is
the Hatch
working
House?
out This one, yes.
Looks better already.
Looks nice, it looks nice.
And? You all set? Bob?
I think it looks good.
Nice.
There's not gonna be nothing on the roof, right, like
So
HVAC
there
units and stuff?
there is a well for condensers on the roof, but they'll be hidden from sight because they'll be below the actual ridge. And we actually discussed with the design review committee that exhaust coming from bathrooms and the like would not go out to the side, but they'll go out to the roof, so that we can.
Yeah, are those contained on all four sides?
Yes, so there's actually, it's kind of like a ring of gabled roofs,
Okay.
so it's completely.
So,
How do you get
sound
into it?
attenuation.
To maintenance?
So from the stairs, there'll be an access, ramp to get up there. As a matter of fact, with the height of the roof, we could be able to actually get a full tour.
So we talked about the new building. The next item we're gonna talk about is traffic. I had a memo late this afternoon, only in draft form, from the Traffic Rules and Regulations Committee. Traffic Rules and Regulations Committee has unanimously voted not to recommend a gate here. They would like to have a gate into this site. Traffic Rules and Regulations thinks that that is a very bad idea because it would back up traffic coming into the site. So they do not recommend that it be gated. They also, can you put up the landscape plan? Trees along the edge of the site, they were
No,
proposing to put trees in the town-owned land. They do not recommend the trees in the town-owned land because the town needs that, for various other things associated with the Rotary. So these four trees, they want on the applicant's property. They don't want them on the town property, and they certainly don't see them as a public benefit.
This was a computer rendering done by the landscape architect. So it does show the trees coming out forward. It essentially cover or present against the rotary.
And are those trees that ultimately get really tall? Or what kind of trees are those? I mean, is that supposed to be like a mature height we're looking at?
I have to.
Yeah, that would be like a mature height that they're looking at, but they're not on the applicant's property. They don't care what the applicant does on their property. They just don't want them in the land that's not the applicant's land.
If I may, I pointed that out to Karen in other meetings because I didn't want to mislead the board in the sense by showing you a picture because we don't own that land in the corner. By the same token, I was concerned about, again, the arrival of Scituate coming to the Rotary and always having that unkept portion of property right there. So even though we're gonna landscape where we are, if it's the decision that we leave that alone, then so be it. If we decide to go forward, then the association would be ordered to maintain that forever and keep it kept and clean.
Well, I explained that to traffic rules and they absolutely don't want the trees in that area.
Did they explain why?
Because it's public land, you never know what improvements have to be done. You don't know where all the utilities are, and it's all associated with the Rotary. And so it needs to be kept free for the Rotary.
Do they have plans to improve the look and feel there? I mean, that's what I would support is, get together with the town and figure out a way to make that look a little more compelling.
I don't know if they have plans to improve that, they just they don't have any objection to the trees as long as they're on the applicant's property.
Yeah, but I sort of tend to agree with the applicant here is that, you know, they hate to have a strip of land that looks like unkempt and uncared for. Particularly as it's the primary entrance to Scituate from that end.
I mean, I asked who actually owns it, whether it's the state or whether it's the town, and we got that answer, so I tried to
Oh, this
delve,
might be state-owned.
it possibly stayed up, but I tried to delve into that, and, this is the direction I was given.
Do we know how deep the piece of property is?
Yeah, how much land are we talking about?
What is,
Is it up, does it show it on that drawing?
are we talking about?
It would be highlighted.
Significant, I would say about 40 feet right away from the sidewalk.
It's pretty significant.
40 feet from the sidewalk or from the center of the
The
road?
sidewalk,
From the sidewalk, I would say.
Wow.
pretty significant area.
Holy cow.
You can see it better on the site plan.
Can you point it?
So I don't have a scale on me, but just eyeballing, it's about 40 feet. Just from sidewalk to the beginning of the
property.
applicant's property.
There is a George Washington monument sort of around the corner toward the Stockbridge.
The stone mill?
Yeah.
This would be in the area of Judge Cushing.
I know they moved it. I don't know what they did with the bell, but anyway.
I don't wanna step on anyone's toes here, but I guess I'd like to hear more rationale about why, like, I don't understand the traffic rules and regulations implications of this.
Site distance.
Site distance.
But yeah, this is the first time anyone said site distance.
Yeah.
You didn't say site distance, where you said it was the,
It's not in their memo, I mean, they just.
so that, I guess I need to know that.
No,
If
I'm
it's,
sorry, I will read it to you. The committee recommends that all the trees be planted only on private property and should not cause any line of sight issues. Vote unanimous.
but do we know it causes line of sight issue? Right.
Well,
So
I'm
you're
kind
talking
of with
about,
Steve
you're
here,
talking about
especially if we're losing
the
40
trees on,
feet.
if they put them on their property,
No,
it's
they're
still a
not.
line of sight issue.
they don't want any line of sight issues. They're talking about the trees as they appeared on that plan that I showed them.
Yeah, but they're really talking about line of sight.
They're talking
So
about line
whether
of
they're
sight.
on their property or the town's property,
Trees can't impact line of sight at any rate.
right?
So what they're telling us is 40 feet back will not impact the line of sight supposedly.
I don't think, I
They
don't think
don't
they
want it
said
at
that.
any town land, that's what they said.
Okay, what they're telling us is 40 feet deep.
Any town, well, whatever, if they say, I mean, we don't know the exact measurement, but we're estimating 40 feet.
You can tell
Back to
that
this.
a little bit more.
And too, I think somebody should be looking at this with respect to, you know, they're gonna do what looks like a nice development here, like we ought to clean up the whole, you know, rotary access there and everything too.
Sounds a little austere.
It does,
And
it sounds like it's
Pretty austere right now.
Well,
Well, then I'm gonna recommend that the applicant supply us some information, because, you know, we don't know where the utilities are there. I'm gonna tell you, the aspects from the Rotary and the MBTA are not good. So if they can, pardon,
Can you just repeat what you said? I'm sorry, I just missed it.
that the applicant should supply information, then supply the existing conditions, you know, do a survey, find out what it impacts, and then we can present it to other people. But we know that the as-built from the MBTA are not good. They're just not good. They've tried to look at them before for other stuff, and they're not great.
Raise your hand if you're surprised.
It takes it out there to figure out where those are, right, so.
We did get the record, water, sewer, all that in the area, and we're showing it on the plan. The only thing in that area that I noticed was just that overhead wire, and there's a utility pole on the site a little bit to the left of the proposed building.
And I do understand as far as the gate is concerned, there was concern that people from across the street were parking. And it was felt at traffic rules that that's up to you guys to,
But we said,
put up a sign,
I get the issue about the
Yeah.
gate, 'cause I
right,
can see
but to
where
let them know that
where
if
traffic.
they don't belong there, they're gonna get towed.
Well, once people living there, I think there's another, it's not abandoned anymore, somebody owns it, they're not gonna go live on, they're gonna go park in their driveway.
I think
Yeah,
that's right.
yeah.
Well, they might do that.
They might.
Well, that's a long way, but then, no, I'm not gonna go park in my next door neighbor's driveway.
No, but I think it's become kind of a commuter drop off where they.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
People park there a lot, but I think once you're inhabiting there, people are not gonna be so content to do that, hopefully. Hopefully, we'll have
It
some
won't take
nice-
long for you to make sure that that's done.
As far as this issue on the road.
Yeah,
It's also just sort of maybe a philosophy, right? Do we really want like a gated,
No.
feels like a gated community? We didn't even do that on,
Well, it's more of a security issue for residents there, that's all.
I get the issue about somebody else parking in there, but I agree, you probably have to figure out how to police that differently. I think once you have people living there, you probably get to limit that.
Karen?
All right, so traffic, a traffic report was, you submitted a traffic report and our traffic engineer, reviewed it. There's been no response to our traffic engineer's comments. We are expecting a response to that.
What was the date of that?
His report was dated November 22nd, 2021.
We met with him. My traffic engineer,
Yeah, but I don't have anything
We
new,
can supply some.
I'll get you.
I don't have anything new from you on it.
We'll get you some.
I mean, basically, what he said, that this represents a significant reduction in traffic when compared to the volume of traffic that was generated by the former medical office building. So it's a significant reduction in traffic. The lines of sight from the project driveway exceed the 200 feet to the west and 460 feet to the east along Driftway.
Was that inclusive of the plant trees and all?
No, these trees are new. You know, the proximity of the site driveway to the rotary indicates that motorist delays for vehicles exiting the property will be directed into the queues during the approach to the during the project, for the rotary. He thinks the volumes it's small, so the delay should be minimal. The vehicle turning analysis should be provided using the auto turn software for the fire department truck. Drive aisles should be a minimum of 23 feet to accommodate parking maneuvers and a minimum of 20 feet elsewhere. The stop sign should be relocated. The wheelchair ramp should provide for crossing the project site driveway or sidewalk, so it's flush across the driveway. Sidewalks and marked crosswalks should be provided. One-way and do not enter signs should be provided. This is, of course, before he saw the revised site plan. All signs and pavement markings should be installed to conform to the manual of uniform traffic control devices. The site triangles need to have landscaping and other stuff not to exceed 2.5 feet in height, and snow accumulation can't exceed 3.5 feet in sight. A narrative should be provided that explains how tenant moves will be accommodated within the project site, including where moving vehicles will be staged, which should also be reflected in the turning analysis. A narrative should be provided which explains how refuse, recycling will be collected and where pickup will be occur. Consideration should be given to installing electric vehicle charging stations. And I'm going to tell you that the planning board is going to condition electric vehicle charging stations, so we want to see them on the plan. Weather protected bicycle parking should be provided. And the parking, he indicated, was 1.5 spaces per unit. So we're expecting a response to the traffic. And we do want to see a minimum of how many electric vehicle charging stations.
How many residents is it?
I think
I would say
Is
two.
that, but
Is there a statute on that, or
No.
is this just?
No, it's way in the
This is how
future.
you win in the future.
You require them on the gas station's putting them in, you ask for that, and Drew is putting them in, so you ask for them there.
My question to the board would be, no problem putting them on site? Are we gonna be required to allow public use of those?
No.
They're really intended to support.
No, it's just, I mean, I could imagine
electric vehicles.
having a public use, like
Yeah.
charging on a private property.
No, but when you go to your, MapQuest, it tells you where the
They
charging
go out
stations
here and do
are.
it.
Well, yeah, I know that, but not in
People
a, not in
encourage
a
that,
private
right,
building.
and they sell the electricity that people use, so people use it. They do it on public sites all the time, it's not unusual, but you don't have to, right? So,
I think you had two at the mobile station across the street.
We did. And you might wanna think about putting one or two in the garage.
That's right, but anyway,
I would put
I don't know, I don't think
one in.
I'd leave them outside.
No, I believe by building code, I have to put one in the garage, by the building code.
Okay.
Right, so that's that issue.
where's the trash going?
Where a dumpster location would be.
To the far right of the parking lot, it's gonna be dumpster pad with, vinyl fence.
That's what this far sort of keyhole is?
Yes, to the right, yeah.
Do I live in the old condo unit in town that doesn't have trash pickup?
He was too cheap.
Must.
Okay, the water and sewer study that you submitted, I submitted them to DPW almost 6 months ago, I haven't heard a thing. Okay, so just letting you know, I'm gonna pursue getting comments on that. And, public benefit. This also requires a public benefit because it has a density bonus. So at some point, you need to talk about a public benefit.
Mr. Pollock, as much as we appreciate your landscaping, that is not a public benefit, that's the cost of doing business. Thank you, just to make your house look nice.
Well, there's no question.
Thank
It
you,
was just, I didn't wanna mislead the board with that area by the road. That's all.
thank you.
And if the board decides you want me to have my traffic engineer do a line of sight for you, I'm happy to do
One thing just on the landscape, just a suggestion, but like between like 1 and 5 o'clock in the afternoon, that southwest corner is gonna be like the surface of the sun. So putting up a shade tree near the building, the future residents might like that, but just a consideration. My house faces the same way and I'm like,
Oh, so you get it.
and I don't have, yeah, I don't have shade tree.
As far as the utility locations, we have to use a dig safe to mark out utilities, so we always know where they are.
Perhaps you could produce a plan that shows the trees with all the utilities out there and the utility poles. And then I can take that back to traffic rules and say, what's the real concern here? And put the sight lines on it too. Then I can try to, try to figure out what their real comment is. I mean,
Seems like the only thing it could be would be when people from the driftway are coming into the roadway, they may not be seen by people on Country Way for which reason.
well, it
It's
is,
pretty far away.
That's all I can think of.
it is tough down there for road. Should be better now it's repaved.
Yeah, they'll just go faster.
I mean, you'll probably be assigned some traffic mitigation. We had a rotary safety audit done. You'll probably be assigned some traffic mitigation from the rotary safety audit.
Yeah, I mean, I think once we figure out all the landscaping, it looks like you just have to do this line of sight analysis to make sure it's not impacting anything. I would be more in favor of, sort of a public benefit that did something with the street, sidewalk, streetscape in front, all the way along, that just made the place look better. One of the things we always talked about is trying to carry the look and feel, kind of down the driftway to make that whole area look,
And I've asked about that. I've asked about the width of the sidewalk, I've asked how, what the plan is in terms of how it's going to be consistent down that portion of Driftway. And I don't get a lot of answers.
Well, so you gotta start somewhere.
Because there is an issue, the roadway safety audit came up with an issue with bicycles. It's very difficult for bicycles to navigate around the rotary and then come into Driftway. Because the sidewalk in front there is only about 5 feet. The new sidewalk down in front of the gas station is 10 feet. And so that it's definitely an issue with the with bicycles.
But it's also an issue, having sat in a meeting with a gentleman who I think they were gonna put him on traffic rules and went somewhere else. And basically, it's a 20-mile-an-hour speed limit going into the rotary. And unfortunately, nobody goes 20 miles an hour. They go way too fast. There are crosswalks. Nobody pays any attention to anything. So this is an enforcement issue along with trying to figure out bicycles and everything else. But it is a speed situation. Okay, so we have you all have your work cut out for you.
Just if I could, one note on the plantings. Would the board entertain some sort of a planting plan that didn't include trees? That was low, and I just want to maintain what's there. To me, it's gonna look horrible coming in.
I understand, and somehow, some way, we will figure it out.
Thank you.
Okay, we will. If we have to go camp out in somebody's office.
I think trees are going to be a benefit to you. I think trees will be a benefit to the building, and they'll offer vertical relief and help give the residents in the building some shade and some type of,
Yeah, some shades, all
So we will try
cars going around.
Communication in this town hall is not what I would consider to be exemplary. So we will work very hard. When are they coming back?
well, we're proposing that, I think July 28th.
I think it's 20.
Oh, we're June.
Can I just, that you are in a public hearing and you
Is
have
there
public,
anybody
there
that
may
would
be
like
someone
to-
that would like to make comment.
Sure.
If anyone from the public would like to make comment, you're on Zoom, you can certainly raise your hand or wave at us and I can, okay, here we go. Just click your button when I ask you to unmute, there you go, Mr. Humphries, you're on. Just, please identify yourself with your name and address.
Yep, George Humphrey, 8 Lads Way, James Landing in Scituate, just downstream from the project. I'm also a board member of the North-South River Watershed Association. And our concerns are mainly having to do with stormwater and treatment of the banks of the Herring River. When are those issues going to be discussed?
They'll be discussed at the next planning board meeting for the planning board for stormwater, the banks of the Herring River. That's a conservation commission item. That'll be discussed at the conservation commission meeting.
Okay,
Right.
thank you.
But we'll be very interested to hear what they have to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So I guess we need to continue this. We were proposing July 28th, but when do you think you'll have revised? I mean, he's finishing the peer review in the next 2 weeks already. I can't fit you on in June. We can possibly do July 14th. We can do July 14th, we can do at 6:30 and we'll move the other thing that we already had for later.
Okay. That's fine. Do you have a motion to continue?
So moved.
We still in public hearing?
You have a motion out there, you just have to change it.
Oh, you want to read?
Yeah, sure. I do, somewhere.
All motions are paper clipped together.
It was the last one.
Is there any other public comment? I move to accept the applicant's request to continue the public hearing for site plan administrative review and special permit for multifamily building in the Village Center and Neighborhood District, Greenbush Gateway District, Greenbush Gateway Business Subdistrict, BCN, GDC, GWB until July 14th at 6:30 PM, and to continue the time for action for filing with the town clerk until September 30th, 2022. Is there a second? Second. All in favor? Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, our next item on the agenda is continued public hearing, stormwater and site plan review, common driveway, 533 Country Way, owner Marvel Homes LLC. Good evening, gentlemen.
Good evening.
How would you like us to start?
At the beginning.
With a song and dance.
We don't want to go all the way back to the beginning.
No, please don't.
Steve Bjorkman for the record, I represent Marble Homes. We have Greg Gansey, who's also an engineer on the project. We've gone back and forth with Mr. Cheshire's review comments, and the original letter that you guys all had a copy of, that we went through extensively at the last couple of meetings. We're boiling down to, I think, pretty much an agreement on most everything that's in there. There are a couple of outlying issues, and I'm hoping that you got a copy of Greg's letter that he did dated May 20th, which sets forward responses to most of the stuff that's in John's letter. Once that went through, there were a couple of revisions that were made on the plan. Most of the stuff does revolve around the stormwater and trying to make everything work as best we can in the storm system. The common driveway itself, I think we went through most of the items where it required planning board input on, planning board's opinion on certain things, whether you wanted more stuff put on the plans or not put on the plans. So I think we've added all the things that the planning board was looking for on that. John just did an email, I don't know if that came in today or not.
It came in today.
It did today, okay. That had a couple of issues as
I
far,
can send it to you.
well, had a couple of issues as far as the drainage
We
was
have that.
It's that summary issue
Yeah.
in the table.
I'm sorry, Steve, I didn't interrupt you.
So we were over again. Everybody understands Greg does have another job, so he's taken as much time as he can to try to get this thing wrapped up, weekends. And today we were over trying to respond to this as soon as we got it. Greg had it right over to Ross. And he can go through pretty quickly a couple of these drainage things, because I don't really want to bore the board with some of the technical issues here, but I think the net result is what John has done is run his own numbers on some of the changes that Greg had made, and I think John's on, is John on the meeting?
Yeah.
I am here.
Okay, how you doing, John?
Good.
So we took the numbers that you had come up with in your chart, and the numbers that Greg came up with, and there were minor discrepancies in some of those numbers, but when we take your numbers and put them up against the pre and the post on the site, all of those numbers still show that if we use yours, we're under the pre and post conditions. So there's still less water leaving the site under all of those issues. One of the things that we talked about, I think it was the last meeting, was the difference between the constant flow rate and using conductivity of the soils. And I think that the planning board had agreed that we could use the conductivity of the soils and the Rawls rates. We did that. I did notice that in the calculations, John, that you did, it looks like it's a constant flow rate, but it looks almost like it's constant velocity as well. We're trying to figure out exactly what you used when you ran those numbers.
Okay. I can explain why and what, I mean, I think it's down to kind of one issue as far, well, there might be a couple other minor, but as far as the drainage goes, so I go through what the DEP handbook requires, and I know some of these things for smaller projects, the board doesn't always require 100% compliance, but this is what I put in, and then I don't have a vote, but this is what you would have to do if it were to be compliant with DEP regulations. So conductivity to groundwater results in a variable flow rate of infiltration. And if you read the DEP handbook, it's supposed to be a constant rate, not a variable rate. So I don't believe that the conductivity to groundwater that was used is appropriate. The other issue is you're supposed to use the bottom area only, not the side. And in some cases, it has the wetted area, which means that includes the sides. So those two variables, in my opinion, are not allowed under the DEP regulations, and they overestimate the exfiltration. In the case of this particular project, they did give me their input data so that I could hopefully save some time by looking at it, because if something changed based on my analysis of, there's something entered wrong and that assumption change didn't make a difference, then I think it wouldn't matter. The only one in this case that matters, and I think it does need to be addressed in some fashion, is the underground system in the front of lot 1, in my calculations, becomes undersized. I'm not saying that the rate couldn't be managed with that system with an overflow to the road in the 100-year storm, but you have to manage that overflow to the road. You can't put a pipe to the road. It has to be managed in another manner. Or alternatively, you could increase the size of the system a little bit, and that might work as well. Not my place to design the system, but I'm just offering some options that maybe would work to do it. And that's kind of where I left it. All the other issues, I think, may underestimate the runoff rate, but it would still be within it for the other systems, and the other systems would work okay. I would always put it in my letter if there's something I disagree with, however, because as you might be aware, if I agreed with something, somebody's going to tell me down the road, the next project that comes in, well, you said it was okay then. So I'm not going to do that.
We were kind of curious with that, because I did go back and look at some of the projects that you reviewed in Scituate, and they used the Rawls rates. They didn't use the constant flow rate. So I'm curious.
Hey, Steve, you're not understanding what I'm saying, I guess, because you are still using the Rawls rate. You're just not using conductivity to groundwater, which ends up in the program giving you a variable infiltration rate. The Rawls rate is still the number used.
Yeah, getting back to where we were a couple of meetings ago, the board determined that the conductivity to groundwater infiltration model is acceptable because it has been used throughout the years. It has been approved by this board, other boards. We had agreed upon that. When when I model this, SRS 3 contains the 100-year storm. We're talking about the 100-year storm on 2-lot subdivision. You can beat this thing forever and a day into the ground saying, well, this isn't what the DEP handbook says and whatnot. The bottom line is, the way I've done it here is no different from the way I've been doing it for the last 20 years. And it's the same thing with other projects, and we've confirmed that from other engineers. You know, if there was a problem with this, you'd see it by now. I'm asking the board to honor the words that they gave us, what, two meetings
Last
ago,
meeting and the meeting before, I think, but.
that this is an acceptable manner, method of modeling. Let's just move on, please.
Karen?
I'm gonna remind you, our consulting engineer was not available at one of those meetings where you made that decision. I think we're talking about addition of 3 underground chambers, approximately. Is that a big deal?
Yes, it is,
Why?
because we've got limited access, you know, to the site. And it's also a delay of time, an unnecessary delay of time. I have never come across this issue before in my life, not in this town, not in other towns. Please honor your words. This board conveyed to us that conductivity to groundwater is an acceptable modeling technique. And even the other modeling technique, I still am getting acceptable answers. And even in the 100-year storm, you don't have to mitigate it as long as it's not gonna cause downstream flooding. And, you know, you're talking about outflows, I'm looking at 0.56 CFS. I don't, they're very small discharges to these design points. I mean, in the 100-year storm, 0.62 CFS, design point 3, 0.018 CFS in the 100-year storm. What is the intent of this regulation? It's to protect the downstream abutters, and we've done that. 0.018 CFS in the 100-year storm, and it's still less than the pre-development condition. It meets the regulation. Please honor your words. That's all we're asking.
Well, I will have to tell you that we're not here to decipher the engineering requirements of DEP. That's why we have outside experts to help us, right? So to the extent that you two can't get to reconciliation, then we need to understand that. But I'm not gonna sit here and say, well, you talked to some other engineer and they said it was okay. This is our engineer right here, right? So let's reconcile whatever we have.
What we're chatting about when we say talk to other engineers, it's the method that they use in the town of Scituate to do the same thing that we're doing.
And it was
These are all
and it
projects.
was-
I don't need to talk to other engineers, Steve. We have an engineer right here, okay? This is who we brought in to review this, right? So let's try to get to reconciliation.
And nobody has ever had an issue with this before.
I don't know whether that's the case or not.
I do.
John, has nobody ever in the history of the world had an issue with this before? I mean, who
No,
knows that,
people,
right?
let me just, I do think that like Greg said, the flows are very small, but I have to treat all projects the same. anybody that submitted something done that way, I would have that comment. I don't believe it's an appropriate way to do it. Could you do it without adding chambers and perhaps have a different method of letting the thing overflow across the lawn and still meet the rates? Maybe you could. It's not my job to design it. I just tested to see if it was possible to make the program actually have an answer, because what it did with me when I changed a couple of those variables that we talked about, it basically crashed because the pond in SRS3 was too small based on the design. So I did test it to see if making it bigger would just make it work, and it did. I didn't want to get into all sorts of different scenarios, and there's probably other scenarios available that would allow the water to potentially overflow the top of the system, and then it would still meet the rate. Again, my job is not to design it, but using the conductivity to groundwater in the wetted side versus just the flow through the bottom is not consistent with DEP policy. If it's been done wrong for 20 years, it's time to learn the right way to do it. But I don't think on this particular project, the impact of letting it overflow might not be that big of a deal. It might still meet it, but I'm not going to design that or do the calculations for that. That's not what I'm supposed to do.
Could I make a quick comment? John, is doing this system for less than 4 lots consistent with the DEP policy?
The DEP regulations do not require it for this many lots. However, the town regulations.
So it would be inconsistent.
Now, let me
with
finish.
DEP policy.
Can I finish? So the town regulations enact use of the DEP regulations for these size projects is what happened with the stormwater bylaw. So the stormwater bylaw puts them in, otherwise, so you are subject to the DEP regulations relative to those requirements for all projects that trigger a stormwater permit.
So let me try and ask the question one more time. Is designing something like this for less than 4 lots consistent with DEP policy? Forget the town, is it consistent with the DEP policy? Or is it exempt?
If this were filed with the Conservation Commission.
I'm talking about the DEP policy.
There isn't a DEP policy, there's a regulation.
Okay.
There's a regulation. If you are, it's not necessarily exempt depending on where it is, but yes, there's a different requirement for applicability under DEP than there is in the town.
So DEP policy says if we have 4 lots, we are subject to their regulations, or less than 4 lots.
I believe it says that you don't have to do certain aspects of whatever.
Okay, all right. So it's not consistent with DEP policy to do this for 2 lots or 3 lots. That's where we're at, but we're trying to meet as much as we can. The problem is all these flows are so small that the computer's crashing. You can play with numbers and make it work, make it not work. You can have a little puddle over here, but it's so minor that you can't do it. That's why DEP exempts small sites like this. It is virtually impossible to meet all of those regulations. We have done a tremendous amount of work on the drainage on this site. And is it ever gonna meet 100%? I can tell you, you can look at the golf course. They just did one down there, this board approved it, okay? If John looked at it, I guarantee you it won't meet the requirements, okay? But you know what? It's pretty close, works okay, it's gonna be fine. What we're talking about is so minor here, we can beat the numbers to death for another 6 months. It's just, it's not the right thing to do in this situation. And we have less flow.
Thank you.
I'd like to make a statement. Mr. Bjorkman, I know that you do not like the stormwater regulation.
Oh, it's horrible.
But that is your opinion, and when you get on the board and you can rewrite the stormwater regulation, that's fine. This is, it seems to me, I'm not a stormwater engineer, I'm not any kind of engineer. I would absolutely have to refer to Mr. Chesney, Mr. McLean, Mr. Pritchett, and maybe Mr. Borstein to tell me about stormwater. However, We sit on this board to protect the town. I understand that you are working as a developer. I have to tell you that I find some of the language a little hostile and a little harassing and actually a little threatening. We are doing the best that we can as elected officials in the town to protect it, and I know that you don't like that. I have to tell you that I have to rely on who the board hires as an engineer, and between the two of you, or with an intervention of people who understand stormwater, we can come to at least a better understanding, but we need to leave all of this hostility and angst at the door on everybody's part, please. I don't know if DEP has changed their regulations, Mr. Chester, has that happened, is that?
No, so DEP wrote regulations for stormwater that are implemented through Conservation Commission typically. So the way the DEP regulations are, they have requirements for certain size projects, different types of things. And if you're a small project, a single family lot, you don't have to go through all of the standards as in this project. However, if it were, this is not the case in this particular project because it's under the town's stormwater bylaw. So the bylaw does not exempt the smaller projects. So that's why it's applicable. I think that the fix to this project to make this go away, in fact, I thought we would be at a position if they hadn't submitted a new filing to sort of be conditioning it at this point. But since another filing came in on Monday, then there had to be another update and review of it, and it delayed everything, frankly. Whereas it might have been better off to stick with what was already there and maybe condition it. Because some of the things I think Greg would admit that he changed in the plans were very simple. He added made pipes a couple bigger. He changed a couple of things so that the program would actually not have error messages. And the only error message I'm getting on it when I try to run it again is that system either needs an overflow, which is an option if it's properly designed, or it could be made bigger. Either one of those would solve it. And I think that would probably address it and you'd meet the rates and everything would comply. I don't think we're talking something that's that particularly onerous to do. I get it. It's one more step. It probably could have been left off and you would have been discussing making that a condition tonight maybe, but at this point with another filing, everything got sort of thrown a little bit. Now you got to look at that. Now you got a new set of drawings and whatnot. So I think that is really it. There's something that needs to be done there that's probably pretty simple and can be done fairly easily. I understand that it's difficult because Greg doesn't work at Ross Engineering anymore and all of those issues. That's not really the board's issue, frankly, but I understand the issue. The other issues I think that you need to address, which are very minor in general, I think, is the O&M plan needs to have a condition on the permeable pavers. It wasn't listed. And I think I wasn't at one of the meetings. I was out of town. And so I'm getting my information sort of from draft minutes and things like that. But I thought I understood that usually if a waiver is requested from something, it's on the plan. There was a request for the landscape plan not being required. And I don't know, lots of times the waivers are listed right on the plan. That's something the board can decide. I think as far as the drainage issue, like I said, I would make that comment every time. I would say that that's something that actually I didn't recognize until fairly recently on another project I was working on in a different town, where another review engineer, where I was not the designer, but I was like a private party reviewer. And he asked me about that question and then he looked into it and then I looked into it and he said, yeah, you can't do it that way. That's not consistent with the regulations. So, we all learn new things, hopefully, as we progress through our careers here. And when you learn something new, you use it. And so it's quite possible that Greg has done that for a long time, but now I've realized, and I think if he looked into it, he'd realize too, that it's not consistent with the regulations. And on a bigger project that is subject to the regulations, you can't do it.
Thank you.
Yes.
Madam Chairman, as a compromise, can we just put an overflow right at the downspout gutter? Put it onto a splash pad? And now you've got an overflow, no sheet flow over the lawn, most likely, it will retard, some of it will be absorbed. And it will reach the same design point in the same manner. And then there's an overflow. I mean, I'm looking at, it's design point 4 is the design point in question. And what we've got right now in the pre-development condition is a condition where there was 0.69 CFS in the existing condition. By my calcs, it's 0.05. By John's calcs, it was so low, it didn't
No, it's not,
register.
that wasn't, no, what happened, Greg, is the system wouldn't give me an output because it failed. It failed because it gave me an error message that the fatal error, the 100G, there wasn't enough storage in the system. So it gave me a fatal error.
Alright, so where do we go
Usually-
from here?
Well, anyway,
Okay,
can we just do an overflow and the?
Let's ask John. Let's ask-
John, would,
So can they do an overflow?
An overflow would probably work. I would imagine it would. It's just like I said, it wasn't my job to try to design an
Alright,
overflow.
fine, then fine.
Alright, so-
We'll have an overflow.
So there's 3 issues then. There's an overflow for a sheet flow to the gutter. The O&M has to be added, the permeable pavers. And does the board want the listed waiver from the landscape plan on the plans?
Oh, I did put that on, I think it was sheet 4. My, it was this.
Yeah.
Um.
I'm gonna try and find it on the plan.
Yeah, it's,
It's on 4.
I think it was on sheet 4.
How the stormwater?
So look at, try sheet 2 first. See, it would be up in the upper left corner.
Yep, you got, I see it.
Okay,
Okay.
is it sheet 4, John, or 2, right?
It's on sheet,
A waiver
It's on
has
sheet
been
2.
formally requested in writing to the planning board to waive the requirement of submitting a landscape plan.
Yeah, it's
Okay, so there appears to be 2 issues that need to be addressed in order to accept this project. I have another issue that I'm just bringing up to the board today. I sent you a modification of the common driveway easement. Late this afternoon, I got town council's review of the common driveway easement. It is different from what I sent you. So I will be giving that to the applicant tomorrow so that they can incorporate town council's comments into the common driveway easement.
Okay.
Okay?
So you didn't give us her comments?
I got them late this afternoon,
Okay.
so I did not give the comments out.
Okay.
So we ask our stormwater engineers if they think this is a good idea?
Do you want, would you care to comment?
If I think what is a good idea?
Do you think that this splash thing is,
Overflow.
this
Well,
overflow is gonna work?
I think
John
John
yes,
said
it
it'll
would.
probably work, but it's up to the proponent to design it, and make it work, right? So I would think that would have to be a condition of this.
Well,
I'm good with it, yeah.
Okay.
okay.
Yeah, just so the board understands, when we do the common driveway agreements, we use the boilerplate that's been done on the last common driveway. Basically change the names and change the plans. So these updates that keep happening, and I know my case went back and forth with Karen, and Karen had a number of changes. We did make all those changes and sent it back in, so we felt that we were all set, because we gave her everything she wanted, and I don't know, maybe in the next one, they'll go back to town council, and town council will change something else in the next one, I don't know. But
Town council changed something to try to protect the town. That's what town council did.
Okay.
And it actually helps the applicant in this case
Yes,
as well.
I'm not saying it doesn't, all I'm saying is we were using a common drive agreement that's been used in the past, that's all I'm saying.
All right, now, we have Karen.
So I think the board is ready to do findings of fact.
So,
I have worked on conditions, I have a whole set of conditions, but the board hasn't seen them. Thus, we cannot do them tonight because we only got the other submittal on Monday, and had we not got a submittal, John and I probably would have worked out conditions. But I'm not ready with conditions tonight because we had to wait for tonight's meeting.
all right, I will read the findings of that.
As you go through the findings of fact, if we have things that we'd like to try to correct on them, do you want me to wait till the end?
Yes, please.
As long as they're facts,
It's gonna help, I mean,
as long as they're facts.
it's,
I move to make the following findings of fact. 1, Marble Homes LLC, the applicant, filed an application for site plan administrative review for common driveway and stormwater permit for common driveway serving 2 lots at 533 Country Way, known as Assessor's Map /block/lot 26-2-5, the property, with the town clerk on July 27th, 2021. The applicant's deed is recorded with Plymouth County Registry of Deeds at book 54760, page 232. 2, 1 common driveway is proposed. According to the application, which measures the drive from the property line, the length of it is 182 feet. It serves 2 lots. 3, the property at 533 Country Way contains about 56,527 square feet, according to the plan, and is in the residential R1 zoning district, in addition to the water resource protection district. The planning board endorsed a Form A dividing the property into 2 lots on June 24, 2021. For the site is in the water resource protection district, the zoning bylaw establishes a water resource protection district to include areas significant to the town's drinking water supply source, which requires zoning protection. The water resource protection district requires all runoff from impervious surfaces to be recharged on site, diverted toward areas covered with vegetation from surface infiltration to the extent possible, or is otherwise directed from the Scituate DPW and Scituate Conservation Commission. 1 inch of roof runoff is recharged, and the first inch of runoff is recharged for all impervious areas according to DEP regulations. 5, the zoning bylaw requires rendering impervious any lot/parcel more than 50% of 2,500 square feet, whichever is greater, unless a system of artificial recharge is provided that will not result in degradation of water quality is prohibited. The plans show greater than 15% impervious with 22% impervious. However, the engineer indicates the water quality will not be degraded as evidenced in a signed and stamped statement by engineer Gregory J. Tansey, B.E., dated 4/25/2022. 6, the standards of the common driveway indicate that the location and construction of the common driveway should minimize soil disturbance, vegetation removal, and drainage impacts, and preserve existing trees over 12-inch caliber and other natural features of special significance. The plan shows soil disturbance and vegetation removal for constructing the common driveway, its drainage systems, and a 2 4-bedroom single-family dwelling and 2 septic systems. As the existing concrete wall in the right-of-way of Country Way will be removed and relocated on site, and a new walkway is being constructed, there is disturbance in the right-of-way of the frontage. The proposed stormwater management system has been reviewed by the town's consulting engineer, Chesia Consulting Services LLC, whose comments indicate the stormwater system could be adequately addressed with revised plans. Based on the findings of fact presented in numbers 1 through 6, common driveway meets the standards of section 720.7A. 7, the common driveway is 16 feet in width with bituminous berm and 2-foot grass shoulders on each side. The fire department has indicated 16 feet is acceptable to service 2 lots. The common driveway meets the requirements of section 720.7B. Common driveway, number 8, is accessed from Country Way, a public road in Scituate. The common driveway is not connected to any other common driveway. The common driveway meets the requirements of section 720.7C. The common driveway shall be located in an easement which allows space for installation of water lines and utilities. The water lines and gas lines are shown on the common driveway plan in the easement. No other utilities are shown. Electric, telephone, and cable utilities are indicated as overhead wires connection to lines in Country Way. Not all utilities are shown as underground utilities. The common driveway meets the requirements of 720.7B. And the common driveway cross-section shows a top course of 1.5 of bituminous concrete, top course type I-1 over 1.5 bituminous binder, type I-1 over 12 inches compacted sorted gravel subbase. Frost-free subgrade shall be provided between the subbase and parent material. The common driveway meets the requirements of section 720.7E. 11, the common driveway is approximately 186 feet long, measured from the end of the hammerhead to the property line. This is less than 1,000 feet and meets the requirements of section 720.7F. 12, the applicant has stamped and certified there will be no increase in rate or volume of runoff to abutting properties for the 1, 2, 10, and 124-hour storm events. Chesapeake Consulting Services LLC has indicated the stormwater management system could work with minor changes and runoff draining to abutting property shall not exceed that which existed prior to construction of the common driveway. The common driveway meets the requirements of section 770.7G as the site is in the Water Resource Protection District, Zone 2. Infiltration of surface runoff is maximized by open lawn basins, underground infiltration chambers, a hydro storm HS6 by HydroWorks, and a hybrid media filter. The standards of review for section 770.6E have been met. 13, no impervious areas are located above the major components of the proposed septic system. The common driveway meets the requirements of section 720.7H, as no impervious areas are above the proposed septic system. The proposed septic system will meet all Board of Health requirements. The standards of review for section 770.6D have been met. 14, the common driveway is buffered from Country Way. 2.5 caliber DBH red maple trees are proposed to be planted along the inside of the wall as replacement plantings for trees in the Country Way right of way that are being removed as required from the scenic road approval. Existing trees are proposed to remain at the west property edges by the septic systems. This may provide better traffic safety and reduce visual impacts on abutting properties. The common driveway meets the requirements of section 720.7I for screening and section 770.6A for protection of adjoining premises against detrimental and offensive methods of utilizing the site. 15, turnarounds for emergency vehicles shall be provided with a minimum length of 30 feet and with 20 feet in locations approved by the fire chief. The Scituate deputy fire chief indicated there was no issue with the hammerhead. The common driveway meets requirements of section 720.7J. 16, the plan indicates that the available site distance of the driveway exceeds 300 feet and the AASHTO site distance is met for the posted speed of 30 miles per hour. The common driveway meets the requirements of section 720.7K and section 770.6B and C. 17, lot width for the lots served by a common driveway may be measured parallel to the common driveway, except in the case of 50-foot frontage lots. Lot width of lots 1 and 2 are both measured parallel to the common driveway. The common driveways meet requirements of section 720.7L. 18, spill control provisions will be required on site. Fill is proposed on site. Length of stone wall removed has been minimized. A new concrete wall will be provided. Erosion control will be provided. Outdoor lighting will minimize glare to adjacent properties. The requirements in section 77.6 F, G, H, and I are met to the extent practical for a residential common driveway. 19, based on these findings and information submitted by the applicant, review by the board, the common driveway meets the requirements of section 720 and section 770.6 of the Scituate zoning bylaw. Do we want a second for discussion? Discussion.
Okay. I don't know who wants to take a pencil out, or if you just want me to do this with Karen, but I'll go through some of the changes that I have, and some of it, and I understand Karen did a great job trying to get this stuff ready for the meeting, so I will definitely give her that. But everybody's trying to move as fast as they can on this, so. In number 2, the length of the driveway should be 186, not 182.
It's been changed.
Okay, no, and that's why I'm saying, some of this I'm assuming you may have done, but for the board, I just wanna go through. And maybe you didn't catch all the ones I caught, but that's okay. In number 3.
Before we leave too, Karen, I would, at the end of that sentence, put in parens, and then in quotes, common driveway, capital C, capital D, so you're defining common driveway. Because you've used it with capital C and capital D in some places and not in others, and we just thought it'd be consistent throughout.
So you want me to write parentheses, and common driveway?
Yeah, common driveway in quotes,
Okay,
just like you did with applicant.
okay,
And then you just wanna do a search in here and just make sure all the references to common driveway are capital C, capital B.
okay.
Okay, number 3, the property at 533 consists of about 56,527, that should be 56,394.
Check the A and R plan, the one with the A and R plan, okay?
Okay, this is what, and Mr. Maravito is the one that gave me that number, so hopefully he's correct with that. I just wanna make sure that that number is accurate. And then I just had in number 5, it said that evidence in a signed and stamped statement by Fred Tansey, and I don't know whether that should say certification or statement, because I think he certified that.
It's a statement, it's a statement, it's a stamped statement.
This is just stuff as I'm going through, that's all. Okay, number 6.
Can I just go back to number 5? The first sentence says the zoning bylaw requires a rendering impervious. Meaning lot parcel more than 15%.
That's right.
That's right.
Unless a system of artificial recharge is provided that will not result in degradation of groundwater quality. And I copied it right.
It's just,
It's the zoning bylaw is poorly written.
no, it's just poorly written, yeah.
It's poorly written.
Okay, that's one in a row. Okay, on number 6, I'm gonna get about halfway down. Proposed soil disturbance of vegetation removal for constructing the common driveways, drainage systems in 2 4-bedroom, single-family dwellings, S at the end of dwelling, and 2 septic systems. And then the next sentence, I would take out the word as and just say, capitalize the existing concrete wall on the right-of-way of Countryway will be removed and not, I wouldn't use the word relocated, I would say a new retaining wall will be built, so that we don't have to use that one, and I get it, I understand where she was coming from. And so it'll be, a new retaining wall will be built on site, and then I had comma, a new sidewalk will be installed or constructed. Rather than walkway, just refer to it as a sidewalk.
I gave it to you ahead of time so that you could have given me these
I
comments.
just did these about an hour ago, so, you know, doing the best we can here, so. Okay, I'll go down, the town's consulting engineer, Chesapeake Consulting Services, whose comments indicate the stormwater system, okay, we're now saying could be, if we agree to do that. The overflow, I'm hoping that would say that it will be, addressed with the revised plan.
I will check with the consulting engineer.
Okay, and number 7, the last line in number 7, it should be driveway.
If we're gonna vote on these findings of fact, then we can't vote on them. Are we gonna check now? Are we saying we're rewriting this, or are we
I'm
determining
gonna
whether?
rewrite this for the next time, but you could do a preliminary vote, and if there's gonna be any changes next time, I can put them in a different color, so we know which ones we
Yeah,
have
I'm
to go
just saying,
back to.
when we say the system could be adequately addressed, you're saying you wanna change that word to will be.
I'll check with John and see.
So that's what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, I think if we're adding in the overflow that John was looking for, I would hope that the finding of fact would be that, yes, it will be. And again, that's with, with John's consent, obviously.
Yeah.
Okay, in number 7, like I said, the last line in number 7, it says driveways meet, that should be driveway meets, I believe. And going all the way over to number 14 on the next page. And this one was a little confusing to me because I believe that the buffering is not from Country Way, but the buffering normally is from the abutting property. And this driveway was right in the middle of the property when we talked about that. The driveway actually, it comes right out to Country Way, so it's not buffered from Country Way. The site is going to have trees in front of it, and there are going to be trees along the common driveway. But I'm not sure if that's exactly what you want to say. There was no need for buffering it because Paul owns on both sides of the driveway. So I would think you'd want to reword that somehow. Or indicate that it doesn't have to have the buffering because Paul owns on both sides. The board decided they didn't have to buffer from an abutting property.
It says, to provide better traffic safety and reduce the visual impacts of the traffic on abutting properties, the planning board may require common driveways to be set back from lot lines and or screened with a buffer of trees and shrubs.
I get that, but the buffering is from the abutting properties, not from Country Way itself. And the first part of that says it's not buffered from Country Way. It doesn't need to be from Country Way. It would be abutting properties. And again, it's right in the middle of Paul's property. So I just think if you look at it again and read it, I think you'll.
Tell me what you think it should say instead of us doing this.
Yeah.
The common driveway is buffered from.
I would, if it were me saying it, I would say that there was no need for the buffering of the common driveway from abutting properties because it is in the middle of the subject property, something like that. Rather than running along an outside property line where you want a fence or, hedge or something like that. And that would be my intent on your buffering. You try to protect neighboring property. But, hopefully they can look at that. And then Karen, you went on to say, it says existing trees are proposed to remain to the west property edges by the septic systems. Okay, now that's in the rear of the property, and it says this may provide better traffic safety. I lost it on that one a little bit because there is no traffic near the trees on the back west where the septic systems are. But it will reduce visual impacts of abutting properties.
Then why don't you rewrite it and please send it to me so
Well,
that I
I'll
can,
give
I
you this
can
copy,
correct it.
you can have this one, I'm done, I'll hand it to you, I'm not trying to argue, I'm just bringing up points that I just saw, that's all. On number 15, it starts out by saying turnarounds for emergency vehicles. I would say a turnaround for emergency vehicles shall be provided with that. So again, it's just some of this typos. And then it says approved by fire chief, and it's actually the deputy fire chief. And I know the next sentence you use deputy fire chief, so I think I would use that twice.
I copied right from the zoning bylaw.
Okay. The zoning bylaw was wrong. It's the deputy
I
fire chief.
copied right from the zoning bylaw.
I get it, but two different individuals, that's all. Number 18. It says a new
Number
concrete.
16, Karen, just add common from the driveway first. In the first line,
Where would you like me to?
And the word common,
the common driveway, right? First line.
The plan indicates that the common driveway? Oh, at the
Indicates the
common
available
driveway.
site distance at the common
Okay,
driveway.
okay.
And actually, the second line in number 12 at the end probably should say year. It's the 1, 2, 10, and 100 year, 24-hour storm events. And on number 18, in here it says a new concrete wall will be provided. I would probably just say a new retaining wall will be provided. That almost looks like it would be a poured concrete wall, and I don't think this is going to be a poured concrete wall. So a new retaining wall will be provided.
But isn't it gonna be a concrete wall?
It could be block,
that is stone.
so it potentially could be stone as well. It's just going to be a retaining wall, that's all.
I mean, can you reuse the stone wall that is?
Isn't it
No,
already
the wall,
defined by
it's a big concrete
Yeah, I know.
wall, always. We're not going to reuse that.
Okay.
Isn't it already on the drawings
It is on the drawings.
as a concrete wall?
No, it's a block wall.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then it's a concrete block wall.
It just to me, this just looked like it's going to be another poured wall. We don't want to do that. And then in the last sentence, also in 18, it says the requirements of 770 FG, H and I are met to the extent possible, and that's just a typo. And in number 19, in the middle of it, reviewed by the board, the common driveways, take out the S. That's it, and again, I apologize that I didn't get this to Karen, but I did just go through this right before the meeting, and we're trying to respond as fast as we can. As soon as we hear something from either John or Karen, we're doing as quickly as we possibly can. So, I don't need that, so if you could take this.
Karen, you can vote on it. Is there any further additions, subtractions, modifications? Okay, all those in
I
favor?
move to approve as amended.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous. Okay, with that,
So you need a continuance of the meeting.
yes, we do. You do, it's in. Here you go. I don't.
We're proposing June 23rd for the continuance.
What time?
6:30.
Move to continue.
I would like to try to find a different conditions. If most of the conditions are already, and we have an opportunity to look at those, it could be a very quick thing on the. Last comment, certainly by that time. Only because this has been an extremely long project, and I understand everybody has gone through this. Now on for conservation, I don't think that any of this plan is gonna change that's gonna affect conservation, so they have a meeting on June 6th on this.
This is at the discretion of the town planner, it's your calendar.
That's right.
I have conditions written. I am not giving them to the applicant until the board sees them. I am not finished with the conditions because I haven't coordinated with John on the last stuff.
Okay.
So
And the other thing that's happening here, gentlemen, our town planner is going on a well-deserved vacation and will not be back until the 8th. So we want to do this and we want to do it right. So it's the 23rd. The way it is. accept the applicant's request to continue the public hearing for the stormwater permit and the public meeting for the site plan administrative review for a common driveway at 533 Country Way until June 23rd, 2022 at 6:30 PM, and to continue the time for action filing with the town clerk until July 29th, 2022. Is there a second? All in favor? Aye. Thank you.
And John, thanks for getting back as quick as you could on the responses that we had. You know, it's a lot of back and forth, but I appreciate the fact that you did get a chance to look at this last revision and get back to us.
Yeah, thank you, John.
Okay. We have a discussion about surety reduction at 18 Ford Place. Yeah. Okay. Can we get that? Okay, all right.
That's why we do here.
Oh, we've got 3 minutes. Ooh, 3 minutes.
It's not a public hearing.
Good evening, long time no see.
Yeah,
Looks, it's good,
thank you.
and it's done,
It's done,
and it's sold.
and it's, I don't own it anymore.
Wow, good for you.
Yeah, no, it worked out great, and the units came out nice, and,
You know what, it looks a lot better. It really does look good.
yeah. No, it was it worked out well, I think you learn something from every project, but I'm happy with the way it came out.
Okay. All right. Karen, do you have anything? Just want me to read this over.
I think John, you got his report, he basically said that everything seems to be constructed well, all right. There were some changes in the landscaping, and there were some changes in the screening, but I think that they work well for the site. And I think they are good changes.
Okay.
Do you agree, right, John?
Hold on, you're on mute.
Something we never used to say.
There we go.
Yeah, no, I think the landscaping looks fine. I think certain things actually had to be moved around. But the spacing looks okay. I mean, I'm not an expert on the landscaping, but I think everything looks all right as far as all that goes. So yeah, I think basically they should be all set. There were a couple little things that I think are minor, like one plant I saw wasn't planted, but I looked at where it was supposed to go and I don't think it fit. You can comment on there was a U or something installed next to the place.
Well, if it doesn't ever get planted, we're gonna ask you, John.
It is on site though.
Keep it alive.
Was on site. It didn't look like it fit where you had it drawn on the plan. It looked like they're a little too big, but anyway.
All right, thank you, John. All set?
Yep.
I move that the surety bond GM 210142 for $97,000 for 18 Ford Place for the site plan administrative review and special permit for density be released in full as the town's consulting engineer, John Chesia, has reviewed the as-built and site and found the work to be completed and in substantial conformance with the approved permit plans.
Second.
All in favor?
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. I do have one question. We're in our the bond year ended, so we're in our grace period. It ends June 1st, and then we have to re-up the bond if it doesn't get released or signed off. So I don't know what the town has to do. I just have to let my insurance agent say, yeah, they're gonna release it, but I don't know what has.
I'll file this with the town clerk tomorrow, and you'll get a copy of this. You'll get a copy of this.
Okay, thanks. Enjoy your vacation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we posted on YouTube on that Scituate TV channel, you can still watch it.
Okay. What?
We can put it on TV.
Okay, our next item is a Form A is 52.
Bye, John.
Bye, John.
Bye,
Take
John,
care.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, John.
52, 58, and 60 Tilden Road. Mr. Morse.
Great. For the record, Gregory Morse, registered engineer representing the property owner and applicant David and Roberta Camara. The property's 52 Tilden Road on the right-hand side of the plan. It's a duplex on the left, which is 5860 Tilden Road. Properties in the R2 zoning district requiring a minimum of 20,000 square feet and 40,000 square feet for the duplex. Essentially, the duplex was on an 1.5 acre lot, and the Camara's house at 52 was on a 1/2 acre lot. What we're doing is redividing the line between the two properties to make them essentially each an acre in size. We're not altering the frontage on Tilden Road. Tilden Road, as you know, is a public roadway. This does not create any new buildable lots where there's no alteration in frontage. This is just a conveyance between two abutting properties, both owned by the applicant. It's entitled to endorsement.
Will not require a plan of land in Scituate, Mass. 52, 58, and 60 assessors parcel 45-16-27 and 28 stamped by Jason Scott, PLS, Morse Engineering Company, Inc., for applicant/owner David and Roberta Camara, dated April 19, 2022, as the division of tract of land shown on the accompanying plan is not a subdivision because every lot shown on the plan is frontage at least the distance presently required by the Scituate zoning bylaw on the public way of Tilden Road. Planning board endorsement of this plan is not a determination as to conformance with zoning regulations. Is there a second? Second. All in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you. Okay, now. Ooh, early. Old business, new business, reorganization. Okay. It's want to select a new chair, what do you want to do?
I would propose that we, as we have done in the past, rotate leadership again.
That,
And I would suggest that we ask, I haven't asked him yet, but ask Ben to do that.
I respectfully would decline an opportunity at this juncture. It's something I'd certainly like to in my tenure on the planning board. I just think, the amount of personal obligations I have right now, I don't think I can probably put in the amount of time, particularly communication, that is owed to the town, to the board at this point, so.
I would respectfully suggest I would nominate Patricia Lambert as chair.
I would be good with that. Can you do vice chair?
Yeah, I could probably do that. I've done it before when I had 2 babies.
Nothing could be quite as hard.
Yeah.
There's a motion for Patricia and for Ben, chair and vice chair. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. It's unanimous.
Clerk,
Clerk.
Rebecca's clerk now.
Jump up.
I'll jump in the next.
You know, I'll do clerk.
Okay,
Okay, I nominate Ann as clerk.
Oh, thanks. Is there a second?
a second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So,
Thank
I want to thank you all. I've enjoyed being chair. It's time to move it on. And,
Thank you for your guidance, leadership, and just support. You know, I just think it's good that we.
I agree, but I've enjoyed it. it is what it is. So. Madam Chair,
Yeah.
might as well jump right in.
Is there anything else we have to do?
Yes.
That's it, right?
No, I mean, you'll have to sign some stuff.
Not tonight.
Not
Now
tonight.
you can turn that right down.
I haven't signed anything,
Just
sorry.
approve the minutes, please.
Okay, meeting minutes.
It has Rebecca's name on it, so you want to have her sign up the minutes.
Yes, I have. I move to approve the minutes for May 12th, 2022.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
You signed this already? Yep. Cool beans. All right.
Would you do the copy, please?
Yes. I move to approve the requisition of $172.83 to J and R Graphics for office supplies for $1,588.75 to Horsley Living Group for peer review services for Seaside and Scituate, for $750 to AmeriCorps for peer review services for 119 Grove Street, for $1,900 for peer review services for 576 Parish Road, for $89.50 J and Graphics for business cards for Corey Miles. Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye, and they're all signed. Thank you. You gonna,
No one have liaison reports, is anybody liaisoning lately?
Say UC last week because I was away,
Go to the golf course thing.
Yeah, I was
Me
thinking
too,
about
I
that.
don't know of course they, but I.
hey, it's open till 9, we'll leave. Okay, went to traffic rules and you got the memo. So it's, it was an interesting meeting. Actually, it went on for 2 hours and I'm not sure why, but it did. They were saying it was one of their better meetings. There you go. There you go.
I came down to the baseball meeting the other night at the library, and they have changed the scope of that. It was originally just a JV, baseball field. They have a
Maybe
working,
one at the high school?
no, so they have a working group, they need a new field, obviously. They need 100 new fields apparently. And it's interesting, they blame it all on Title IX. If I had a daughter, I might be a little sure by that. But they have a working group, with the same people who do the high school fields, Mr. Novak, Mark Novak, and in attendance was soccer, lacrosse, baseball, softball, and whatever else you throw around out there. They decide among themselves that their target is going to be Central School.
Right.
With 3 new diamonds, 2 for baseball, 1 for softball, and in the middle, 2 soccer fields and a lacrosse field and all kinds of activity and batting cages. The thing to remember is that they voted last night at the Board of Selectmen, the town meeting has been moved up to September 19th.
This has to do with the water treatment plant.
So I'm sorry, I missed all of this. So they want to take the current field that's up there and convert it into like a multi-purpose field?
Yes, so they want to say,
Does it get expanded or is it on the same
it's there,
footprint?
it's all contained, they're just not using all of the available space.
Uh-huh.
So they went out and they looked at it, the man who does this is what he does athletic fields, this is his specialty. So there's 2 baseball fields, a softball field, and in the middle, 2 fields going one way, 2 fields here. So you can actually play multiple games at the same time, apparently. They were a little chagrined, Ian told them at CPC that they have to come here, and they absolutely knew that. They already know they need a stormwater permit, because they got burned at, DVM on that.
Roachfield.
They're a little concerned with the move up of town meeting that they're not gonna be ready with their proposal. But they gotta put a place marker. The problem that they're having is the project keeps expanding. And that's it. You go, well, what about this field? What about this field? And they try to keep it logged in. So they're gonna go back, they're gonna do another redesign. They wanna see what's happening at Gates. And they were talking about the Toll Brother money, the $400,000. And within that working group, if the money was available, they felt that money would be better spent at Gates, to rehab the field at Gates.
And yet, when we had Kevin Cavity in, we were discussing something else, and he thought that this new field, it was gonna be the rehab behind the old Gates School.
Well, that was one of the options, and
Right.
the working group decided not to. What's interesting is they are not gonna have a turf field, they're going to natural grass. Which then brought up another issue about maintenance, and so they'll have to come, there is an irrigation.
Central field, that's gonna be a grass field.
Yes,
now.
It is now.
You got any water over there?
Well, there is an irrigation, so there is an irrigation system there already. So they have
Well
to,
water?
I don't, they have to come to ask permission. Apparently we did it someplace else. Where?
We did something at, behind Cushing School, but
That didn't work.
it didn't work because it died. But it's, this,
There was temporary.
Yeah, they wanted
Right,
to
at one
put a
point.
well up there.
no,
But they have to come to us and ask permission if they can tap into the irrigation.
that, that feels deadly at one time. Meanwhile, the field at Central,
Oh, we did.
it is dips.
That's concave.
It's concaved and it floods. And so you end up, after it rains, you're up to your ankles in water. So they have to deal with that.
So that's what they thought they might use the money for. This is a very engaged group, so to
Yes.
speak. And they're gonna try to get a timeline, and they will be able to see us. They wanted to know if we had an abbreviated schedule in the summer, and I said, absolutely not, full speed ahead. So we'll be waiting for an application.
And I've been to the selectmen's meeting, Joy Rash. Yeah, you were there, well, the Vine Bar was in. And they were granted outside on that patio that's no bigger than a minute, outdoor entertainment,
No,
a guitar.
with the hesitancy that it will probably be inside all the time, that was one of the.
No, that was acoustical.
No,
No,
it was
I-
still outside amplification inside.
But they wanted a guitar outside. That's
What
what I heard them say. And then there was a big discussion about the parking and you and I talked about this a little bit. And it's just not the wine bar, and of course, nobody said anything about the juice bar. And then, of course, we have Mulaney's that keep coming into private parties. And the people from the Bill Wharf were there, and they're all concerned, and they might at some point make their lot private again. And so we'll have to wait and see what happens with that.
And their response is to go find property and buy it and make parking lots.
Well, there's some talk about that. And so, also too, there was discussion about a memorial. This group came in for what was his name?
Watkins House.
It's a guy named John Connors. He grew up in Scituate, went to BC High, then went to Worcester Polytechnic. Then was a Navy SEAL, got killed in the invasion of Panama. And so he has a group of family and friends and former service people that wanna put up a memorial for him. That's the proposal. They have a very famous sculptor to do it. So it went through the Veterans Committee first for appropriateness and whatnot, and we signed off on it because as it was originally proposed, it looks good. Then we're gonna combine it with I guess it's the honor roll for the town, which is all the war dead from Scituate. And that would be the statue of John Connors, although it's a statue with his exact likeness, it wouldn't be, his name wouldn't be on the statue, so it wouldn't be like a shrine to
Just like
him,
a
although
representation.
there would be a plaque off to the side that would talk about who the statue is named after. So we're just looking to cite it, I guess, and then go back in front of the select board and see if they approve it.
And they want, their initial indication was a 10,000 square foot area.
Yeah, that seemed big.
And this 10,000 square feet, it would be almost 14 feet high, the statue.
Yep.
Pedestal, et cetera, and maybe this is not politically correct, but I have a real problem with it, okay, I really do.
Yeah.
And it's $750,000 for this memorial. And I, with all due respect to the family, I think that, which will be raised through fundraising, that money would be far better spent to house veterans. That is just, the memorials are almost out of hand, out of control. So, you know, a lovely plaque, like we did for George Washington, is sufficient. But that's just my opinion.
Well, I think that group was open to all kinds of suggestions as well. They didn't walk away as a done deal.
No, it's not a done deal.
And they know that.
No, yeah, they're open to all kinds of suggestions.
Yeah, they're wide open to suggestions.
So we'll see what happens. And then you listen to, do you want to tell us what they decided to do with, the senior center? Oh my goodness.
I'm not really sure. So apparently there is a group in town who think that the senior center should be a replication of the Maritime Center and be open to everybody to have baby showers, weddings, or whatnot. And there's another group that says no, that we can only allow X amount of things to happen here, preferably to do with the town. Apparently the senior center has produced a policy procedure manual, which they tore apart, the select board tore apart, literally chapter by page. There's a lot of work to be done there. They do not, the majority of the board does not want the Maritime Center to be turned into a revenue generating facility. That's not what it was built for. The senior center. That's not what it was designed for. They're willing to accept maybe veterans, can pay breakfast, whatever, but it has to be contained to something to do with the town. And then they're talking about revolving funds and how you're gonna pay for this and who's gonna use the kitchen. It just seems a little loosey-goosey right now. They don't really know, and maybe we'll decide as we go along. That never works.
No, it doesn't.
That's never a good idea.
Maritime Center was also funded by private investment too.
Yeah, but
And it was built for free by South Shore.
Yeah, it was a completely different, I mean,
yeah, but that's what they're saying, is that they don't want it to turn into that you can call a reserve the room or a baby shower or a luncheon or something. So I think the feeling is that they have been approached to do that and they've turned it down, but they're finding it harder to do that because they don't have set policy. But we cannot have in the building. So that's a little loosey-goosey. But going back to the wine bar, that outside patio is going to be open from 10 a.m. to midnight.
No, they said that the Wi-Fi hours are not 10 a.m.
Well, that's what they told them last night, 10 a.m. to midnight.
The wine bar, you gave them hours,
I know.
a different set of hours, you gave them afternoon hours.
I know. Well, I just want to bring that up so somebody can go back and we'll look at it when they come up, but they said 10 a.m. I was thinking, okay, 10 a.m. to midnight, inside, 10 a.m. to 10 p.m. outside. I think we need to get a little communication with the select board because they have not met our decision.
I'm sure they didn't.
And
And
I did
the
talk to
applicants.
Bob Vogel today, and I said, Bob, when they come in for a C of O, you gotta make sure, planning board condition that it has to be ADA and building code requirements, because this is a fire lane.
That's right.
So I did give Bob a heads up on that. I will compare the,
And they approved that, and nor did the applicants tell them that they had already received hours from us. Then you say a word, I was at home, and they don't answer the one that is.
And then there was one
It's
other,
not an interactive, meeting.
then there was another fundraising that came in to remember this young man who was killed, Spinzola.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And they're having a flag football day at the high school, baseball field, wherever. And the only reason I bring this up is I requested that they waive fees, which they are, but the fee for that field is $1,600. And if you remember when we were in the auditorium, the fee for that was $500. And I'm just trying to figure out, where does this money go? Because the school department and our tax dollars and CPC and whatever built these fields. We have an override to build the auditorium,
Water treatment,
and now, where does this money go?
How does the like a flag football game though, how is that fundamentally different than somebody maybe say wanting to have a baby shower at the?
It's very different, very, because it's outdoors and it's athletics and it's.
But it's like town property that we would be charging a fee for, whereas so is the senior center for private use. There's no town interest in that. I'm only saying that because I'm not for having the senior center being used for private interest, but I'm just saying that it doesn't seem like there's a real difference.
I think that this is for a scholarship in high school.
Or they
In
did,
order
I
to
know
cover
it's
the
for someone.
Right,
Okay.
and through
It's
recreation.
an honor of the man, of the other one who was very athletic and actually goes someplace on our.
No, I know, it's for
And I
great,
think
for a
that's-
great cause, but
and I
I just
think-
wanna make sure
But I
it's
think
consistent
it has to do
cost.
with the school and it's a scholarship.
Okay.
But my question is, where's the money go?
I don't know where the money goes for all the recreation stuff, I don't know.
Because now, CPC put in $13,000 to look into the feasibility for revamping the tennis courts by the high school. Now, these will be used by the high school, but the high school doesn't put any money into it, nor do they maintain it. The same thing happened a while ago with the sailing program.
Well, I think also the other thing, with the tennis courts to tag on to that, is the public also uses them, and so, yeah.
But
I mean, out of high school, I used to be able to play tennis at Gates, but if that gets changed, they're gonna need tennis courts
Yeah.
in order to play
They,
in season, so.
there will be new tennis courts there at some point.
Well, they need to put MIAA, right? You can
Right,
five
they need
courts.
four or five,
I
yeah,
think it's
they
five
need
courts,
But
three
it's,
singles and two doubles.
People use gates all the time, so.
Yeah.
But it's just, we lost the tennis courts up in North Scituate, which is the playground, and the money that the MBTA gave us for those tennis courts, we're supposed to put tennis courts up on the Ellis property. And that instead went for the football field. So, there you have it. That's all I know, I don't know anything else. And we have the plans report.
All right, so town meeting is September 19th. The warrant will open on the 14th of June, it will be closed on the 28th of June. If the planning board wants to do articles, we would need to have a public workshop on June 23rd. We would have to have our first public hearing on the 14th and have the second public hearing on the 28th of July. So I sent you 3 articles. If we're gonna talk about them next time, if you want, we need comments from everybody on them. We need to know if you wanna do them. The setback step 1 is a no-brainer. The board has to decide if they wanna have penthouses or not have penthouses. I'll talk about that in a little bit. And then common driveways. So I need your comments, I need them by the 8th in order to be able to incorporate something for discussion on the 9th. I sent it all to you a couple times. So it's a really tight turnaround because it's all geared towards the water treatment plant. They say they're already 6 months behind on the water treatment plant, and that's why town meeting is so early. If we get into it and decide that we just can't do it, then, we can't do it. But, I mean, if you wanna go for it, we have to start planning this because the legal ad has to be sent to the paper. We have to start sending that like mid-June.
Was one in spring too.
There'll be another meeting in spring. We've already said we wanna tackle some things for the spring, but this is what we talked about a few meetings ago, about wanting to tackle for the fall. So if you wanna do it, please get me the comments so that I can get them all assembled and we can have a discussion for the meeting on the 9th. I have a meeting with Toll Brothers on site on the 23rd for the site walk. Patty, I assumed you would wanna come. If anybody else wants to come, let me know. It's at 9 o'clock in the morning. And I've had the HOA request for a meeting with me. They don't like what's going on down there right now. And I can tell you, I sent a nasty gram to Toll Brothers today. I'm just done with them. I go down there and I tell them to do things, you're supposed to have stabilized construction and things. You're supposed to follow the conditions. Yesterday, there's a street sweeper that no water in it, raising a cloud of dust.
Sounds about right.
They're being fined for that. Last weekend, I guess an irrigation line broke and there was dry, silty water running all the way down into Hathaway Road. They didn't think to clean it up. So they're being fined for that because silty water went off site. It's just, the guy who's being the site super there now told me, I said, what about the inspections? You're putting gravel down and you're gonna put binder down for sidewalks. What inspections? I didn't know about inspections.
So maybe we have to bring, every time they have a site manager change or something, maybe.
Well, I said something in the email, so I'm just letting you know, if you
When
want.
is it? Tell me again.
23rd, but if more than 3 people come, I have to post. So let me know. I would think that the board might want to do a site walk on its own at Toll Brothers. And, I was also thinking that we've been invited at some point, whenever it's convenient for the board, to go to Drew again and go up to the rooftop on one of those. So.
Oh, sorry, tell me what time again, 23rd?
9 o'clock.
We can go to Drew and then we can go to the golf course, we can have
So-
a boat opening.
Wampatuck School is going to be restriping and repaving their parking lots there. They've submitted a notice of intent. They're having no new parking, so they're not gonna come to planning board. There's no new parking. We've been inundated with filings this week. We have a new common driveway for 93 Elm Street. We have a new common driveway for 803 First Parish. 14 to 16 Old Country Way was refiled. And we have a new Form A for next time. We met with Mr. Morris and Mr. Tedeschi on 61 New Driftway. They have a very intense development. They will be coming in to have an informal discussion with the planning board at the next meeting. It has a penthouse, 4 stories and a penthouse. So the penthouse has become significant. Parking study for the senior center, still don't have that. I wait every week. And 115 Grove Street, I've made it perfectly clear to them that they're not getting an occupancy permit without the trees that they were supposed to have before the building permit. I would suggest after tonight's meeting that we do not have, if our consulting engineer can't make a meeting, the meeting gets postponed. And as you know, the stormwater regulations have not been updated yet because, first of all, I don't have time. Second of all, DEP is going to be updating their stuff. And so we thought we would wait till after DEP updates their things to see what we need to do.
It's unreasonable.
Yeah.
Yes, and I've heard it's coming out this summer. And I've heard it's very big changes and a lot of people aren't gonna like it.
More than they don't like ours now.
So, that's what I've heard about the DEP changes. And so I'm still waiting. Also, the consultant for the DPW is also reviewing our regs according to MS4 too. So I haven't seen that either. So we remain very busy and we have a lot of, there's a lot of new stuff coming in. There's a lot of movement out there. And we're doing what we can in a timely manner. That's all I have to say.
Karen, did you get any hints of like why we wouldn't like the new DEP stormwater changes? Like, is there some kind of direction they're going as far as like the
It's
philosophy of it or something?
I haven't seen any of this stuff. I'm only going by what Amy tells me.
Yeah,
They might change the rain standard, go to the Cornell method.
okay.
They're trying to take into account climate change. And so, people don't like to address climate change. I don't know, I haven't seen anything yet. And so thus, I still haven't, started to work on the capacity calculations yet for, multifamily districts, because those regs are due to come out this summer too. We're
So
good,
next year.
we're good for 2022, so,
That's all we care about.
that's all we care about.
All set then? I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
We're adjourned.
What is adjourned?